Opposed, and that's carried. Are we good? Okay. All right, first up then is we have a delegation, Sperling Hanson Associates. I'm going to guess that our delegation is online. Okay. So just while we're kind of getting screens arranged, I'm hoping you can hear me, whoever the delegation is. Sorry, pardon? Nicole, is that what you're saying? Okay, that's great. Thank you. We're just kind of getting the screens set up, I think. So welcome. Thanks for taking time to be here, and I'm going to turn the floor over to you. And generally, the way these work, and you probably already know, is we have about 10 minutes for the presentation and a few minutes for council to ask questions afterward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. Just wanting to make sure you're able to hear me. Nicole, are you able to hear me? I just see the dots going there, so I'm not sure we're fully connected. Nicole, are you able to hear me okay? Okay, good. I think we're communicating. What's that? And you're just on mute. There we go.
I think we're good.
There we go. Okay, you maybe didn't hear what I said earlier
Sorry,
then,
yes.
so welcome. That's
Thank you.
okay, welcome. Every meeting has its own technology little glitches. We're all used to that, so welcome. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and generally with the delegations, there's about 10 minutes for your presentation and then a few minutes for council to ask questions afterwards. So
Okay.
welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me just get my slides started here. I do need to share, I guess, don't I? In order to do this. Hang on a sec here. Oh, goodness. What am I doing here? Sorry.
That's okay, don't worry.
I'm just trying to figure out how to share at this point. And I'm not getting a very large screen here. Hang on a sec. I'm having trouble getting a larger screen. Oh, goodness. Sorry about this. I can't, oh, there it is. I found it. Are you guys able to see that?
Not yet, we see you.
Oh, you see me, but not the slides. Oh, goodness gracious sakes. What is an option? I thought we shared okay here. Let me try again.
Hi, Nicole. This is Will speaking
Yeah.
here. Just down at the bottom, you should see a share screen button that you can click, and we'll let you know when we can see your presentation.
Oh, goodness. I'm not able to get my screen larger here.
We can also share the presentation from our side if that's easier as well.
Yeah. Well, why don't you do that, and then then maybe I can actually get this. Oh, I've signed. It says I have to sign in here. Is that gonna know? Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. Maybe I should try coming in again. I'll jump right in again. I'll jump out and jump in again.
Okay, maybe then, since I'm aware there's one person in the gallery, perhaps we'll just change up order. I'll look to council in case this is a mistake. I'm just trying to think of keeping us moving along and go to the public comment period and come back. Working? Okay, so then, I understand we have at least one person in the gallery who wants to speak. So this is the public comment period. We're just going to change up the agenda. So if there's something that you would like to speak to that's on the agenda, you have 3 minutes, and I'd invite you to come to the table, the delegation table. Just state your name and please give us the item number so we know what you're talking about, and you're welcome to do it. So come on forward. So we have a couple of people. We'll take Michelle first, and then you can come up afterwards. And just there's a button on that mic if you want to just press that. And Nicole, if you can hear me, we're just changing order. We're going to do
Thank you.
something for a few minutes while you find that share screen.
Yeah, I
Okay.
did- I
And if
did.
you don't mind,
Thank you.
if you don't mind muting just while we do that, that'd be
I will
great.
for sure. Thank you.
Okay. And over to you, and
Right. My name is Michelle Nisbet. I'm here today to speak on item 14.1. I know some of you here. Thanks for having me tonight to come and speak. Never done this. I was a little bit nervous, so I wrote some notes down on my phone. I apologize. I was not texting. So I'm here to talk about Riverside Campground. I've been the campground manager now for the last couple of years, 2 years, and this would be going into my third season this year, starting May 15th. So the camp season this year is 140 days. It's safe to say I didn't know what I was getting into when I first took the job, but it is open 24 hours a day. Once that season starts, it is go time. So from the morning of May 15th until the morning of October 2nd, I sleep with 2 phones beside my head and carry 2 phones in my pocket. One is the campground attendant phone, and the other is my own. I've already deviated from my notes. So I am on call every single night. I do, as we are running it as a business, I do have about 6 to 8 people working with me down at the campground, not all at the same time. We take shifts, but I am always on. So I'm the point person. So if someone's down there needs help or has questions on what to do in the event of a camper problem, then that is me. So I have about 6 to 8 staff members, like I said, unless needed earlier. So what I've done is I've structured it in shifts. And this was actually Ryan's idea. Ryan and Riley are the 2 people I initially interviewed with a couple of years ago. So I've structured it into shifts. So I have a staff member down there at 10 a.m. At the latest, and that's providing that they're not needed sooner. So there's all sorts of variables throughout the season, as you can imagine, especially when fishing season hits. So from 10 a.m. till about 1 to 2 p.m. is about how long that morning staff person takes to complete their chores. That's cleaning up campsites, fire pits, bathrooms, bringing unused firewood back to the pit, helping tourists with showers, all of that sort of thing, restocking supplies. And then resetting the campsites for current reservations that day. So once those chores are done, that campground attendant then returns home or somewhere. They're free to go somewhere else as long as it's close to the campground so that they have a good response time if needed. And then at that point, they're on call for the rest of the afternoon. So from about 1 p.m. until 6 p.m., it's a self-reservation time, self-reservation period. So that's when campers roll in, ideally, if they read the signs at 1 o'clock, no earlier. So they roll in to self-check-in, and at that point, there's instructions there for them to call whoever has the campground attendant number, and then they're assisted at that point. And the campground attendant, if you see someone walking around town with 2 phones and a clipboard, chances are they're with Riverside Park. So they will record every campsite that's taken throughout that afternoon, so that reliable information can be passed on to either the next attendant taking the shift or that same attendant that will then return to Riverside Park back at 6 p.m. So even though the day shift is variable depending on the chores, so they're free to leave once those chores are done, the evening shift consistently starts at 6 p.m. and someone is there guaranteed physically from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m. 2 years ago, I had someone down there from 7 to 11, and we found that that just was not early enough. We were getting too many calls of people who wanted firewood for cooking dinner or help with the showers after a long day on the road, that kind of thing. So last year we moved it to 6, and that's been much better, with the expectation that whoever is on shift always goes down earlier if needed. So that's why they need to stay close.
Ms. Nisbet, I'm just going to let you know that your time is wrapping up. So I
Okay.
think you had a couple more things to say, so I'll
Yes.
just a little bit more time, but I
Okay.
invite you to close.
Okay, sounds good. The evening shift then starts at 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Like I said, they stay there until the gate close, and then they spend the night if needed, if required. Someone is not always down there, but they will be if the campground's packed, like May long weekend. So it's a very variable job. I get calls at all times of the night. I've got some funny stories, some scary stories, and some crazy stories from the last couple of years. Yeah, so thanks for having me, and I'm I'm open to answering any questions that you may have.
Thanks. This particular format doesn't have a Q&A portion, but I appreciate that you coming and giving us a little bit of context for the work that you do. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. And I can tell we have at least one more person in the gallery who wants to speak to something. So come on up, and then the same, just your name and the item number for our benefit.
My name is Rebecca Morris, and this is in regards to item number 14.8. I'm requesting the variance, development variance permit for widening my driveway. I apologize, I wasn't able to attend the advisory planning commission meeting. I think there was a lot of concerns that just from reading the minutes that I could have answered. One of the things that their solution I just wanted to address was saying that I could just keep my RV at the same spot. It takes half my driveway, and it's very common for households to have at least 2 vehicles, and it would block my one garage. And then during, like, my son's going to be driving next year. I already bought his car. So yeah, like there won't be enough space for 3 vehicles. So how my driveway is angled right now, it's just, I need to go at an angle in order to get into that space. There's probably about 1 inch of extra space between my neighbor's fence and my gutters. So it's a very, very tricky maneuver. And I just would like to be able to just back right in, go straight and go right into the spot. My neighbor did write a letter, and I just wanted to respond on that, which is it's in the supplemental agenda. And her concern was actually of me parking it. And I think just from looking at this, it looked like I wanted to park my RV right in that green spot, but that would totally take away her view. So I parked it in the back, and you can kind of see where the grass is really faded in the back. That's where the RV is going. And so anyways, I just, she was in favor with that. And so her concerns are, she's going to still have her view, and that's going to be okay. But they do intend to extend the fence, and that's just going to create just a more trickier maneuver situation. If I can't extend that driveway, really, yeah, it just will be nearly impossible to just angle in that way without damaging their fence. So yeah, I just really would like to yeah, hope that council can approve this motion, and yeah, I would just appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for making the comments. Is there anyone else in the gallery that wanted to speak to something that's on the agenda? Okay, and to the delegation, I'm sorry, since I've changed it, we're just going to keep finishing this. So I'm going to keep you waiting. I apologize. We're just going to finish our public comment period. So please come on forward to the table. And similar instructions to others, if you don't mind just stating your name and then the subject on our agenda that you're talking to. And you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Here says 5 minutes. Yeah. Hi, my name is Sharon Patrick. My mom, Annie Patrick. We're here to about the foundation on top of the 3rd, 2-story building, and to build another room on top. And the reason for that is for my son he doesn't like being in the basement, so he wants to get another top, just another gender there for our room, next room on top. That's what it says here, and that's what we're wanting. And that's my mom, Annie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, you had the numbers, so we'll be discussing it later tonight. You're welcome to stay. And view the discussion live. If you want to join us for the evening, it'll be on live stream or you can get the results later. Either way, you're welcome to stay in the chambers if you wish.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know what to say, but that was just for the agenda for next room. I thought said it was gonna be up for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we're through that part because I don't see anyone else in the gallery. So I'm going to move back and go back to the delegation. Thanks for your patience on that. And we're going back to the delegation. Nicole, back to you.
Thank you very much. That's, I think this is already starting to show. This is great. And then, from the beginning. So, good evening.
Nicole,
Yeah, sorry.
Nicole, if I could just interrupt Will here again. We can't see it on our side. Would you be able to
Oh.
click share screen? And if not, we can view it. We can display it here from our side.
Oh my goodness, okay. Hang on a sec. Let me try another share here. No?
Maybe we'll just get Mr. George to put the presentation up.
Yes,
And
please.
then
Yeah,
you
sorry.
can walk through your slides and just make sure
Yeah.
he's showing the same slide you want. All
Thank
right.
you. That works. I don't know. We're used to using Teams in our office, so this is quite a different technology for us. All right. I see.
My apologies, Mr. George. You've shared a screen, not the specific window.
Nicole, are you able to see your presentation there?
Yes, I can see it now. Thank you very much.
And just say next, and we'll go to the next screen.
Okay, great. Yeah, so good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you very much for this opportunity to present our results of the organic feasibility study. This is a summary of the 96-page report that you would have seen in your agenda. My name is Nicole Conert. I'm a senior environmental engineer with Sperling Hansen, and we have Matthew Dornbos here as well. He wrote a large amount of that report. So next slide. So the purpose of the study was to provide Smithers with a pathway towards meeting their community energy and emissions plan, SEEP, by 2030. And also organics diversion is one of the priorities in the Smithers strategic plan. The study was conducted in 4 parts, including delivery of 3 technical memos and a final report. These slides will summarize the parts and provide recommendations and next steps. We're happy to take questions at the end. It should be noted at this point that for the study, we did attempt to communicate with the Witsett First Nation and the village of Telkwa, but unfortunately we were unable to receive any response from them for data or their interest in the study. So part 1, the objective was to look at a centralized RDBN processing facility. The first step in that was to determine the processing needs, the throughput of the organics, including the volume, the number of single-family dwellings to serve, population growth rate, and facility size. With facility size, we were able to determine also that 2,200 tons of organics would be processed in a processing facility. We looked at 17 sites initially, and then shortlisted to about 5 locations in electoral area A. These were scored using specific criteria, such as distance to Smithers, the zoning and environmental aspects as well. So the old landfill site near the existing transfer station was determined to have the highest score, and also next highest score was the site on Railway Avenue. The site beside the transfer station is in the ALR. So it did cause some challenges for operating and for utilizing the product. So we have focused on the Railway Avenue site at this point. So in this next slide, we go to the technologies, and we looked at 16 unique composting technologies, and then they were shortlisted, and the optimal technology was discovered to be the covered aerated static pile. There is a picture of it in this slide. We assess the CO2 emissions per year of operation for that facility, and it was determined to be about 2,500 tons per year. And the cost for Smithers residents to operate the facility would be about $83 per household per year. So the next slide. The part 2 was to examine a Smithers local organics processing option. We looked at 3, just 1 second, we looked at 3, kitchen processing, backyard composting, and a Smithers local processing facility. The kitchen processing is a machine that sits in the kitchen, and you put the organics material in there, and then it reduces in volume, and it then can be put in the garden or into a backyard composter. Backyard composters are a common feature in some single-family yards where they want to do some gardening. And then we did determine that the local processing facility would be the lowest risk option, because it's often with backyard composting, folks are just not as interested in doing it themselves, so they either stop doing it or don't want to purchase a composter. And the kitchen processing program, the material, if it does not have an option in a backyard composter or garden, we could feasibly see the residents putting into the waste stream. So the next slide. So continuing with local processing, we did again shortlist some sites within Smithers, and the Railway Avenue site was determined to be optimal. Again, we looked at the 16 unique composting technologies, and the optimal one was again the covered aerated static pile, and you see a picture of it here as well, without the cover. The emissions reduction estimate was determined to be about 1,300 tons equivalent, CO2 equivalent per year. And the costs for Smithers residents, about $160 per household per year. And that's including the capital and operating for the facility. We also looked at the per ton cost of waste diversion and the per ton cost of CO2 equivalent emissions abated. And you can see those costs there. The next slide. So the next phase of the study was to look at the curbside collection program currently operating in Smithers and seeing what the best options were to add organics to the collection program. Currently, garbage and recycling is collected at the curb, and it is done bi-weekly. So for a third stream collection, it is best practices to do weekly organics collection. So this fits well with the current system, as the only change would be to add a weekly organics collection service. And no new trucks would be required for this addition once the new collection truck actually arrives. Also, a new 120-liter carts would need to be provided for residents' purchase. We determined that purchasing the black carts with a green lid would be most practical, as currently garbage is collected in green carts, so there could be some confusion there with the residents. Also stickers would likely be needed on the new carts. The cost associated with curbside collection of organics in Smithers is estimated to be about $68 per household per year for the new collection stream. Next slide. So we found that the optimal pathway forward in comparing the two, or regional versus local Smithers, is for Smithers to establish a local facility with curbside organics collection. Covered ASP technology allows for easy expansion with addition of more piles or bunkers. The estimated total cost to implement this service for the town of Smithers would be about $236 per household per year. This cost can be reduced by receiving funding from a Clear BC program, or requiring tipping fees for possibly commercial material. Next slide. So we compiled a list of communities throughout BC that currently offer curbside collection. It should be noted that the smaller communities that are shown with the lower costs, the costs are on the left, and the size of community populations on the bottom. These facilities, or these communities could feasibly be using a taxation component. So when you look at the communities of Hope and Squamish and Fort St. John, these may be more applicable, with Smithers organics collection, a 3-stream collection. And then with 2/3 funding, that cost would go down to about $350 a year. So there is some comparison there to look at. The costs are not unreasonable compared, and we just wanted to make sure we showed this to you. And a note on that outlier for Cowichan Valley Regional District is that with this larger population and economies of scale there, their costs are that high likely because they ship their waste to the US, and they have just purchased an electric fleet, collection fleet. So the next slide. So in conclusion, we provide the following recommendations and next steps. For Smithers, the first step could be to issue a request for expression of interest to find potentially a private processing facility. It could be a local waste management company, or an agricultural operation that's already composting, or maybe a private company would want to build a facility. If that does not occur, then the next step would be to acquire land for a local processing facility, and the Railway Avenue site is the optimal one. Another step would be to conduct public consultation. This would provide some buy-in from the public for a new program. And then, of course, utilizing the covered ASP technology. Implementation of a 3rd stream of curbside collection on a weekly basis, and then also apply for funding from the Clean BC Organics Infrastructure Fund to offset some of those costs. For the RDBN as a electoral area A, we recommend that they examine the costs and the feasibility of implementing organics collection in select areas of electoral area A. So those are all the slides we have, and we can take questions if you like.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Council, any questions from the table? Councilor Ray.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. I was just wondering if you could comment on the odor that would emanate from this site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a very standard question for a composting facility. This would not necessarily be the site, but it is the optimal site that we were able to find that had the proper zoning and the distances away from residential zoning and from any environmental sensitive areas. Often odor is a major step in the design of any organics processing facility, and there are a number of technologies that can be used. The covered ASP technology does definitely prevent odors, And they also have been, other things that have been utilized in many of the other BC facilities that are similar to that are what's called a bio, sorry, it's a, what's it called, Matthew? It's a bio, and anyways, sorry, it's a bed of chips, and so the air gets forced through those bed of chips, and it's basically the odor is processed by the bacteria in the wood chips. So there are technologies that can assist. Sorry, I forgot the name. Does that help?
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions, Council? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just a couple questions. One, do you have a cost estimation for bins that have locking mechanisms on them? And my second question is, what do you suggest would happen with the compost? So for example, is it something that the town of Smithers could sell? Yeah, just any comments on that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. The locking mechanisms, we have actually looked at the costs that other regional districts have incurred. And Matthew, do you remember any of the actual additional costs?
Yeah, I actually think the cost that we had built in was including locking mechanisms. I'm assuming you mean for wildlife and bears is the main reason, and I believe I built those into the cost.
Okay. Other regions have basically given the residents an option, especially in areas where there might be a more of a risk of bear attractant. Does that help with that question?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, thank you very much. We saw, I wasn't sure if it was last year or the year prior, but just a significant increase in bears within the community being attracted to garbage bins. So yes, that was the point of that question. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. And then the other question was the use of the product. That can be utilized specifically just with your public works department, depending on the quantity that you have to get rid of and can't stockpile at your processing facility. It can also be used for landscaping, say around the transfer station, things like that. And it can be sold, like the city of Kelowna does sell their product that they produce. And it can be used as specifically as just an amendment, or it can be mixed with other materials like sand or any other material that would allow the soil to be supplemented in any kind of a gardening situation. So it would be considered a Class A at that point. So it could be used for growing food, not just for flower gardens.
All right, any other council? I just wanted to ask something about near the beginning, you talked about the agricultural land reserve and the site adjacent to our current transfer station. And I think I missed some piece of that, why it didn't stay as a preferred location.
Yeah, at this point, it is owned by a private company, and when we spoke to the Agricultural Land Commission, they basically told us that for a facility in the ALR, at least 50% of the material produced would have to be used on the ALR property. So there would be a limited amount of material that could come off that property for sale or use by Smithers or RDBN.
Sorry, just for clarity, if sellable compost were produced, only 50% of it could leave the property?
That's right. Yeah, it's a stipulation in the Agricultural Land Reserve for composting facilities in the ALR.
Okay. And then one last piece, just in terms of ongoing, perhaps, research with the Regional District of Bulkley-Nechako, because it's referenced. I should know, but I don't remember if there is a similar sort of study being done for RDBN, if you know.
Yeah, that was but one of our big questions at the beginning, and we did include the RDBN in our research, and we spoke with them regarding a number of items. Because it's in their solid waste management plan that they attempt to divert organics. I think they are very much interested in doing that. I think them conducting their own feasibility study, I don't think was something that they were entertaining. They were very interested in what the results of this would be. So I don't really know what staff plans to do as far as consulting them and their next steps there. But yeah, the staff may know more about that.
Okay, thank you for that. Or I'll hear at the regional district table as well.
Right.
Okay, that's it. That's it for me. One last look around the table. Councillor Ray.
Yes, I'm wondering if is there operational reason for the large size of the cart if it's being collected weekly?
That is the 120 liter cart is a very typical size of cart for weekly organics collection. I think it's the smallest cart available that we've seen. So yeah, it's used. City of Vernon, where I live, actually just implemented it, and they basically mix yard waste and food. So it is sometimes not quite big enough. And this program, we are recommending that both yard and food and soiled paper actually is included.
Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. I'm not seeing any more questions, so we'll consider the information and look to staff for a bit of help going forward as well. But thanks so much for struggling through the technical bits at the beginning and for your work on the report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So we didn't prepare a motion for referring this one to staff. Do we want to just do that? Sort of refer to staff, which has become the practice. Councillor Raven? Councillor Ray seconds. So we'll just do that and get a report back when it's timely, rather than saying the next meeting. Does that work, Mr. Shorter?
It certainly does, your worship.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Alrighty. We're going to move ahead to the minutes. So 8-1, the regular minutes from March 11th for approval, please. Councillor Raven, Councillor Patterson, any questions, errors, omissions? All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, and then 8-2, let's deal with the minutes first from the committee of the whole, and then we'll deal with the motions to approve. First, sorry, Ms. McKinley, I guess you can't read my mind. Moved by Councillor Raven, second by Councillor Leonard. Any questions? Councillor Leonard.
Just one amendment. I was present and Councillor Patterson was via Zoom. So we just need that changed.
Thanks for that note. You got that, Ms. McKinley? Okay. If there's nothing else, just on approval of the minutes, all in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Oh, I'm mixing stuff up. There's motions later. Never mind. Okay, we are then up to council reports. We have the Finance Committee, it's under Councillor Bucama, but if we could have a motion just to approve them, please. Councillor Leonard, Councillor Raven, any errors, omissions? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And now I see one motion there. Do we need that one dealt with now? I've got on to fund the proposed public works building.
Thank you very much, Mayor Atchell. Certainly, yes, it would be preferable if council were willing to ratify that. If council wished to deal with it at a later point in time, that's more convenient. Council could certainly do that.
Okay, let's do it then. Councillor Ray moved it originally. You're willing to move it? Councillor Ray moves, seconder. Counselor Leonard. So this was to move ahead with the Public Works Building Project with RBA funding. Any further discussion? All in favor, all in favor? Any opposed? Carries with Counselor Raven and myself opposed. Okay. And Counselor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Attended the library board meeting on Wednesday, March 19th. The report is attached from our director, but there were some items brought up, and a letter to council will be coming regarding some of the issues with the encampment area and the garbage around. So there was some concern with safety, but we'll discuss at a later time. I talked to our board and said that we back our board, our library director, and we just want safety for the patrons and the staff there as well. So we trust them to do the right thing with our facility. So nothing more to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor Elliott. Appreciate that. And Counselor Leonard.
Nothing to report this week.
Counselor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor Atchell. There should be a copy of report for council's information. This is just from the annual Local Government Leadership Academy. I tried to synthesize just some of the key messages that was shared from past deputies of the Premier and other elected officials, such as ministers. And there were many of our colleagues from across the province and others that we know and love. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor Patterson. Thanks for attending and for sharing the information back. Counselor Raven.
So my report's in my report is in the agenda. I just wanted to highlight the Holi celebration that took place. So, and just give a huge shout out to the Namaste Network. They've done a really good job of creating free community events to just share their culture in a really fun and collaborative way. And then also about the Use Your Brain, that was a collaboration between Town of Smithers staff and the Northern Brain Injury Association, where they came together and did a free public event. And it's just really good to see that collaboration amongst the town and the different organizations. And there is the minutes from the APC meeting, and there is one bolded motion. And that is that the advisory, we move to change the best commercial, institutional, industrial project category at the Business Excellence Awards to every 2 years.
Okay, do you mind just moving that we approve the minutes first?
Yep. I can do
Okay,
that.
motion. People are looking at me funny. Let's just deal with the minutes. They're moved. Okay, what am I missing?
Do you usually move the APC or?
It just says for information.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm missing.
Apologies,
Alrighty.
Mayor, we're missing a second.
Yeah, well, except that I was looking to actually move the minutes and it says for information. So usually we do adopt the minutes.
No, normally the APC would adopt their own minutes. These would just
Okay.
be for council information.
Okay, then good for you. So we'll just get your motion on the table.
Perfect. Yes, that's just that council award that the best commercial, institutional, industrial project category goes to every 2 years for the Business Excellence Awards.
Is there a seconder? Counselor Leonard seconds. Counselor Raven.
Well, just some background on that is because typically they don't have that many institutional or industrial projects that come forward. So typically it ends up being one project that comes forward each year, so they automatically win. Or making it every 2 years actually has it where there's something to choose from. The APC felt that just awarding it for the sake of awarding it seems to take away some of the intention of the award.
Comments from the table? Counselor Ray.
I'll support the motion, but I'm just wondering, maybe to take back to the APC, that if somebody builds a building, it either meets the criteria for excellence or it doesn't. And that would be, because we've picked some winners in different categories, or the APC has, generally we follow the recommendation, where even though there's several, it's one that's kind of the least bland, if for lack of a better word. You know, I recall one year where none of them scored super high, and yet they still chose to award. So, you know, if we're awarding excellence, it should be excellent, and it shouldn't matter whether we have to gather them up to fight against each other. Just a thought.
Thanks, Councilor Ray. Any other comments? Yeah, I've got to admit, I'm kind of ambivalent on this. Like, I think considering new construction when it happens is good, and acknowledge the work when it happens is good. Whether that's diminished by considering a 2-year period or not, I'm not sure that it affects that. So these, you know, these awards are things that we've struggled with over the years. It's an attempt to sort of acknowledge good work, and we have a fast pace of construction sometimes and a slower pace of construction sometimes. So I'm content to let this go, and we'll revisit. You know, if it's not working, we can trust the APC to say, here's another suggestion. So, but I think the spirit of it is just to acknowledge the good work in the community when it's seen. Okay, I'm going to call a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, and Councillor Raven's referred to the rest of her report. So Councillor Ray.
Sorry, Your Worship, there was a second standalone, and I don't know if that had been dealt with somewhere else.
Sorry, Councillor Raven, if I missed another item. Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you very much, Mayor Attrell. The second item, I believe, was actually an error, and that one has been dealt with in a different way.
Sorry, I wasn't there for that meeting, so that was kind of tiptoeing around that.
Okay, Councillor Ray.
I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of former Mayor Carmen Graff. I thank you to the staff for flying the flag at half-mast. I had the pleasure of working with Carmen when he was mayor of Telkwa, and I don't want to get, but he'll be missed.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Yeah, he will. Yeah, and we don't want to reduce this table to tears. It was a note on my report as well. Like some others, I mean, I remember former Mayor Graff from when I was a child in the days of wayside service and playing around the garage with his family. So maybe I'll just acknowledge that and extend condolences to his family, including his children, Pam, Doug, Stephen, and Cindy, and their families on behalf of all of us. Thanks for bringing it forward. Okay, and the two pieces of my report are there. The update on the strategic report, priorities list, and my activity report. If there's questions, I'll take them, and otherwise we'll just move on. Okay, staff reports. 14.1, report from Ms. Smith. This is on a now called the resident recognition policy, trying to combine some practices and give us one good practice forward. So the recommendation is there. If someone wants to put it on the table, Councillor Patterson moves. Both? Okay. Seconder, Councillor Raven. Anything that staff want to add to this? No? Any questions from council? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Thanks for the work. Next report from Mr. Blackburn, who's with us on the airport master plan and with the recommendation. Councillor Ray?
So moved.
Moved. Seconder, Councillor Raven. Anything you wanted to add, Mr. Blackburn? Okay. Any questions or comments from council? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And I'm just going to acknowledge the little update from the finance committee yesterday from Mr. Blackburn. Maybe you'd like to offer it yourself. You told us in public yesterday, but we have a different crowd at this meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Attrell. Just that the airport's been successful in a $3.674 million grant for upgrading the airside lighting. So it's pretty exciting news, and it has some very tight timelines that we'll have to adhere to, but we'll do our best.
Thank you and congratulations to all who worked on it. Okay. 14.3 from Ms. LeBlanc, who is with us on the brand refresh project and with the recommendation. Counselor Raven moves, seconder, Counselor Patterson. Anything you'd like to add? Okay, and comments or questions? Counselor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor Atchell, and just a question through to Ms. LeBlanc. I apologize, I was confused by what option was actually option one, so I just want to make sure that I understand. Is that the first option that's the combination based on the feedback that council gave on page 171?
Ms. LeBlanc.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one that was from all the feedback from the committee of the whole. And that was incorporated in that one with the town of All Seasons.
Thanks, Ms. LeBlanc. Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. 14.4 from Mr. George, a letter of support request from the Smithers Rotary. Counselor Leonard, Counselor Raven, any discussion, comments, questions? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And 14.5 also from Mr. George on a letter of support for the Edu Wild project. Mr. George is back in case we have questions, and the recommendations there, if someone wants to put it on the floor. Counselor Patterson moves. Or seconder. Counselor Elliott seconds. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I just had one, and I had emailed stuff earlier. I did get a response, but when I Googled these guys last night, it was, it didn't appear to be kind of a, maybe a, I don't want to say registered, but a valid business or association. So I just had some questions around that and looking for some feedback.
I saw your hand, Mr. George.
Thank you, Mayor Atchell, through to Councillor Leonard. I had similar questions when I was doing the report. So, so this organization, the funding went through the Telkwa Community Initiatives Society. They are a registered nonprofit from their other work in Telkwa there. They're hoping to expand this project, the project to Smithers, and they're deciding if support is provided and funding is approved to expand it, whether they would be staying with the Telkwa Community Initiatives Society or they would be working as part of the BV Research Center. So we wanted to share that there. So they would be partnered with their previous organization or with the new one that's based more locally here. Hopefully that helps.
Sort of, it was more the Edu Wild project. Like when you Google that, there's nothing.
Thank you for the question there. That's the name of the project, not the organization. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. George. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Okay, and we are at 14.6 from Mr. Allen on the sewer video inspection and flushing contract. That is quite the name. With the recommendation, Councillor Patterson moves, Councillor Elliott seconds. Any questions? I'm not seeing any. All in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. And 14.7 from Ms. Chandran, and this is the DVP for 1685 Main Street. And our folks that asked the questions or commented have now left, but this is what they were speaking to earlier. Okay. Removing thank you, I lost my words. Councillor Elliott moves the staff recommendation. Councillor Patterson seconds. Any questions or comments on this one? Councillor Ray.
Just a quick question. Does this bring the non-conforming driveway into legal status as well, or is that just it's existing non-conforming and it's fine to still park there?
Mr. Allen,
I'm gonna say yes, it does bring it into compliance if council approves the variance, yes.
not seeing any other questions, all in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. 14.7, okay, and 14.8, DVP for 1247 Sunny Point Drive, and this is the one where the letter from 19.2 was just brought forward with the approval of the agenda. So you can bring that forward, and this is also what Ms. Morris spoke to at the beginning. So there's a recommendation there or questions I'll entertain. Councillor Patterson is moving the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder? Okay, there is no seconder. Maybe I just need some help now. So the recommendation was moved, not seconded. I feel like we're done, but Mr. Schroeder.
So the motion would be lost.
Sorry, there were hands. Councillor Leonard first.
So we can just ask questions regarding this. Is that okay, even though the motion died, or?
Mr. Schroeder, I'll just take your direction here.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Councillor Leonard.
Because I didn't really know which way I was going with this. And my first question was to ask Councillor Raven maybe why it wasn't recommended at the APC.
Councillor Raven?
So the main feel was that it wasn't required. It was sort of nice because they are able to back the trailer in as it is now. There was also actually quite a bit of concern because they're going to have to take out the garden at the front, so the greenery and the shrubbery, and just pave it over, which would just add to the whole concrete feel. So there was also this past year, it was said that the RV was actually stored offsite. So then they said as well, if they could do that once, why do we have to change things when it was possible to be stored off site as it was done previously? So just overall, it felt like it wasn't a need. It was also noted that from the aerial shot is there were quite a few driveways that had already been expanded. So when everyone goes an extra little bit, then you do end up losing quite a bit of drainage over the course. Like they said, is, one driveway is one driveway, but you times that by 10, then it's 10 driveways. And then kind of where does it stop? So I think I captured that well. Mr. Allen, is there anything to add? Perfect.
Councillor Ray.
Sorry, I also had questions, and I was just wondering, so what's happening now is there's two kind of ugly ruts as a driveway, and I'm not sure if it drains properly or not, but my question is actually, is there anything actually precluding a person from parking an RV in their backyard? So there's no, we're not allowing them to do something that they're not normally allowed to do or anything like that. Is that correct?
I think the question is, can you park an RV in your backyard, Mr. Allen?
Yes, that is permitted.
Councillor Ray.
Yeah, so I kind of regret not seconding it for that reason. It is very tight, but it's just, we're not preventing anything. We're maybe making it easier to get the RV in the backyard, but there isn't anything, if they smash into the neighbor's fence because it's hard, they're going to have to pay for it, or if they smash into their eaves. But I note that elsewhere in the subdivision, there are people that are parking them right on their front lawn. And I don't know if we're maybe getting in the way of just making sure that that's getting parked in the backyard instead of on the front lawn or on the street, and then it's an enforcement issue. So yeah, I regret not seconding it just for that reason.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. I think one of the dilemmas that I saw in this, and it's not the first application like this that we've seen, is that, you know, in this case, I don't know if the owner built the house or not. I don't know the history of that property. But that we have sort of urban neighborhoods where we make an attempt through design to keep the driveway frontage narrow in order to promote the sense of neighborhood and gardens. Just 1 second. And then we are making way to expand driveways and increasing that frontage, which decreases the greenery in the neighborhood in order to accommodate vehicles that maybe are too big for the yard. And I don't know when we get there, but this is not the first application we've seen like this. But over time, you know, we do run the risk of expanding the concrete face, reducing the greenery, and making, you know, how many vehicles is enough. We had a presentation here years ago when we had approved a secondary suite. And, you know, the intention is it's not a secondary suite, a carriage house that could have a little car. Well, by the time they were done, the owners of the main house had 2 or 3 cars plus a boat trailer, plus a skidoo trailer. And then there was equal in the back. Like, there is a point at which the yard can't accommodate those things. So these ones are hard. And Mr. Herzog, I saw your hand.
I apologize, your worship. Just looking at this from a fire perspective, if that RV is parked between those two properties, it provides us with 0 fire separation. If that main structure is to catch on fire, the other home on the adjacent side would very quickly catch on fire as well. In the past, we've had structure fires with RVs in between. We've lost the RVs every time and almost had them extend to that neighboring property. So just from a fire perspective, it would put those properties at a very high risk.
Thanks for that. The notion of why we have setbacks. So thank you for that. Okay. I'm not quite sure where we are. Councilor Raven?
No, and thank you to Mr. Herzog for bringing that up. I did miss that. That was actually brought up from the APC as well, is when you have the RV at the side there, but we weren't sure at that level if there was any code or anything. So thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, now I'm going to get some process help. So there was a motion, it was not seconded. Where are we?
Thank you very much, Mayor Attrell. Council can choose to make that motion again, as the motion was never put in front of council and no vote was ever cast upon it. The motion has not actually been considered by council, therefore it can be considered again.
Thanks for that help. All right, we're back to the beginning. Council, what's your pleasure? Okay, Councilor Bray?
I'll move the recommendation.
And Councilor Patterson. So Councilor Patterson is seconding. Further discussion? Councilor Raven?
So as per the table, usually we talk when we're going to vote against something, and I do feel that I will vote against this simply because there were so many issues that were brought up, and the fire piece is a significant piece for me. And just because as it stands, it is doable, it's inconvenient, but it's not stopping it from being parked at the side either. So I just don't see a point in widening this particular driveway.
Thanks, Councilor Raven. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. I think when the person making the variance permit, they said that they were going to park it in the backyard, so it was merely a pass-through to the backyard. Is that my understanding? But there'd be no way to stop them from parking it beside their house. Is that the fair assumption to make?
I'm going to look to Mr. Allen.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Councilor Elliott, yeah, you bet.
Yeah, and I think that's what the letter from the neighbor is talking about, that if they were to park it beside their house, that would be problematic. And they want to adjust their fence. So if they move their fence to the property line, does that now shorten up the distance between the houses? And now can they even get the thing out of the backyard if they were to park it back there? So I will vote no.
Mr. Allen?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to comment that staff supported the application because due to the fact that the owners are planning to park the trailer at the rear, which is, as Mrs. Morris stated, that's in favor with their neighbors. And the fact that hard surfacing the driveway at the curb would allow for a safer route, I guess, or safer means of parking the trailer at the rear. So, and that's why staff promoted it. And the fact that the lots in Sunny Point Drive or in Silver King neighborhood essentially are not sick, they are wider than your standard lots. So the addition, and there are quite a number of driveways that are already at the 10-meter width. So staff didn't feel that this was, in fact, that the fact that the owner was coming for a variance to make it legal was actually welcomed by staff in this case.
Thanks, Mr. Allen.
Thank you.
Here's my dilemma, and maybe you can help, but I've stated it partway that we approve subdivision plans and driveway frontage. And there's an expectation of greenery. And we've already had some changes within Ambleside. So I'm just wondering if you can help me square that off. So we get the plans, which are also a staff recommendation that say this is kind of the way to a nice neighborhood. And because we are what we are as people, we want to make changes. And I do appreciate that staff look at these things trying to accommodate for folks, but how do we square that with what makes a nice looking neighborhood with driveway frontage and greenery, and then trying to accommodate what all of us want in our yards to be able to really do whatever we want. So I just help us with that. If we support the original plan for all the original reasons, how do we go through all the variances?
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Our zoning bylaw speaks to 40% lot coverage. I think that's increased to 50% now with the low density residential zoning with the higher density limits. So with the 50%, that's before it was 40% coverage. So you were looking for 60% of your yard being green. And I do note in the report that even with when this driveway is increased from 7 to 10 meters, approximately 60% of the street frontage will still remain unpaved. So that does sort of meet that 60-40 original intent of the neighborhood design. And as I mentioned, we have even decreased that by 10% with the new bylaws. So I guess I'm just saying another reason why staff supported the application.
Okay, two more things. One is, maybe Councillor Ray asked this already and I've missed it. If the driveway were extended and the homeowner in fact simply parked by the edge of the house, we can do nothing about it. I mean, I understand the intention. The homeowner said they'll park in the back, but there's no way to stop someone from actually utilizing that paved driveway once it's there. I mean, the driveway is there.
Yeah, right now there is no enforcement of that. The only enforcement is the setback to the main structure. But this wider driveway and parking RVs in residential zones it's on the follow-up list for review. And it's not at the zoning bylaw, it's at the highway bylaw amendment stage. So that's on staff's list to revisit this issue.
That wasn't one of my two, but when is that revisit?
We're hoping for this year. Yes.
Okay, that helped inform my vote. And just because when you're talking about the 50% lot coverage, that relates to housing. So because we have an aerial view in front of us, this just relates to what we're able to do. So I thought, I actually don't remember how many buildings one is allowed to have on a piece of property. So maybe that's a question. How many buildings are you allowed to have on a piece of property?
There's actually not a limit currently in residential zones. It's a percentage coverage now.
Okay, so
we used to have only one auxiliary building. Now it's a percentage.
Okay, thanks for that clarity.
Okay.
Okay, I think with the last piece of information about a review coming and the fact that there was a solution that was different last year, I'm going to vote opposed until I see the review. And then if we get an idea what's going to be acceptable for everyone, then I'd be willing to consider this in light of all that information. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question through to staff, a point of clarity. On the development proposal application, it suggests that this is a single family residential. But then in the supplemental under 19.2, the neighbor suggests that there was a short-term rental unit that was added. Can you just provide clarity for me on that? Thank you.
Mr. Allen, if you're able.
Thank you, Mayor Atchell. Yeah, I'm not sure if staff were aware of the short-term rental. But I believe that, yeah, we would be going through a licensing process for that short-term rental if it does exist. And then that would include the one parking space that would be required for the short-term rental.
A follow-up, if I may, Your Worship. So I think for me, that is why I was actually going to vote in favor of it, was to accommodate, obviously, the need for rentals within our community. And another reason I would say, and I really appreciate that the Deputy Fire Chief had mentioned sort of concerns around safety, just noting that the resident had specified that they thought that it was safe. So providing that clarity, I think, would be important. But I would just say, another reason why I wanted to support it is I feel that the more parking that we can include on individual property is something that I'm in favor of. You know, personally, I live on a very short stretch of street on Columbia Drive, and that whole entire street is actually no parking. But adjacent to me, there's obviously a multi-unit rental. And there's up to 6 cars parked on that property, on the lawn, on the road, illegally. Adjacent to that property, there's an individual who owns a trucking business, also illegally parked. It's not the nicest looking, but I think I sort of wished that if we did accommodate larger spaces, it would make it a bit better, because seeing without those larger spaces, people are just doing what they're going to do. And again, it's not unique to my neighborhood. I see it everywhere when I walk in and about town. So again, I'd just be interested in revisiting this conversation when we talk about sort of the standardization of, for example, what we saw in that development variance application that just came through with the larger driveways. I would be interested in having more conversations around that. So I would have voted in favor if I had clarity, I think, on the short-term rental. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Letter, and then Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I think just listening to the conversation, and I think I am going to vote in favor, but I'm reading the numbers and I don't think it's going to help. I think, you know, the Deputy Fire Chief raised a big concern, but at the end of the day, we can't stop this person from parking the RV in the middle of the driveway, like in the middle of, like, right beside his house. Or, as Councillor Ray said earlier, on that patch that they're requesting the variance for, if we're not going to enforce it, they could just end up parking the RV there. So, you know, I'd like to support a resident to make decisions for their own property. And I think for that reason, I will be voting for it.
Thanks, Councillor Leonard. Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I just wanted, you know, looking at the overhead, really the biggest change is that front right corner of the property is going to be paved instead of a little bit of grass. You know, I hear what the Deputy Chief is saying. I agree 100%, but there's nothing to preclude the person from just backing in and parking right between them anyways. It's maybe good that there's a review coming, but I actually don't really, you know, one thing for paving the front corner is maybe they just park their RV at that front corner because it looks like they'd be able to access the garage in any event. So maybe they don't have to park it in the back, but just knowing that we're not really facilitating anything illegal. We would be facilitating maybe them not backing in the neighbor's fence or their own hedge. And if the neighbor wants to bring the fence all the way to the front yard, it's not going to interfere with their fence because it's just a driveway that goes right up to their fence. So that was just my line of thinking.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Councillor Elliott.
I think I'm going to change my mind. There's some good logical reasoning why. I think what my fellow councillors have said, that you can't really dictate where someone's going to park something in their driveway. So as far as the aesthetics, I like concrete as well, but maybe the APC doesn't. But I have no problem with it from these arguments or these cases. I will vote for it.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson.
Sorry, Your Worship, and I just want to, I guess, ask a point of clarity because it will help me determine my final vote. Through to Mr. Allen, there's no reason that if there is a short-term rental there to expand the driveway now without having that information present. There's no legality around that. Is that correct?
Mr. Allen.
For the short-term rental license to be approved, the owner would have to show that there's adequate parking for the single detached dwelling and the short-term rental.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think these things are complicated because we do try to stuff a lot into a residential lot. And I don't know what the end of that is. I appreciate what council is saying about people being able to do what they want in their yards, but what you do in your yard affects your neighbor. And so there has to be this quality of neighborhood as well. Okay, are we ready? All in favor and opposed? Passes with myself and Councillor Raven opposed. Okay, how are folks doing? Not two. If we're going to break, we're going to take more than two because they never work at 2. Let's come back at 8. Thanks. Alrighty. We're a couple seconds early, but I think we're okay to start. So reconvened at 8 o'clock. And we are at 14.9. Report from Ms. Chandran on the updated town zoning bylaw 1987 with the recommendation. Whoops, sorry. Counselor Patterson, you had your hand up to move the recommendation. Counselor Leonard seconds. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, and then 1410 for Mr. Dewar, the early approval requests. And there's 13 there, 13 items as the recommendation. Counselor Ray?
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay. Counselor Raven seconds. Any discussion? None, all in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Thanks, Mr. Dewar. And we have 1411 from Deputy Chief Herzog, who's here. And these titles are just too long. Emergency and Disaster Management Act, Indigenous Engagement and Consultation. It's just a lot of syllables with a recommendation. Councillor Elliott is moving. Councillor Patterson seconds. Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Herzog? Any discussion? Councillor Leonard?
Why wasn't it put out for RFP?
Deputy Fire Chief?
Thank you, Counselor, through your worship. We ran out of, there was a contractor that presented to the fire chiefs a few months ago, about a year ago, after the EDMA funding came out stating that they could conduct this kind of, facilitate this kind of, this project. It was left with the previous fire chief who was working on it. And then when they moved on, the project kind of sat for a little bit. After looking at different contractors and their availability, we found that this contractor was the best option for what we needed in our community. Furthermore, we'd worked with one of the individuals on other projects with emergency support services and other projects out there. On top of that, we just had a due date of March 31st when the funding needed to be used and the project it started. So that's the reason for why I didn't go to RFP.
Yeah, I think Mr. Herzog did a good job describing some of the challenges faced. Certainly it was a project that experienced some delays as we moved through it. We've also identified that the consultant that we have been working with and are proposing to move forward with, they have a very unique skill set and they've worked with other communities doing the same type of activity in a very positive manner. And so it's also one that I will say, we did have communications between the three communities and we did discuss the opportunity to go out for RFP. And it's one that certainly, as an alternative recommendation or alternative motion, we do have go out for RFP, but it was one that was decided between the three partnering communities that at first at staff level would bring it to all three councils seeking approval to move forward without the RFP process.
Thanks. Councillor
Thank
Leonard.
you both. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's a good chunk of change. So, I'm obviously happy to leave it at that, but there is a concern and it is public money and wherever possible, we should be trying to get those 3 quotes or minimum.
Thanks, Councillor Leonard. Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I share the same concern and I appreciate Mr. Herzog's answer. As a counselor, I'll be looking to make sure we don't direct award anything to Colliers again. Unless, again, there's huge extenuating circumstances and, we're kind of waiving standard practice, but it's on us when we're waiving things to make sure that they don't get waived for the same reason over and over again.
Alrighty. Folks ready? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Okay. And the 15th, we have the report from Ms. Westberg, just the update on staff vacancies. So there's some work underway. And next up are the municipal markers, if anyone has questions or comments for staff. Okay, and where am I then? 16.1 for adoption bylaw 1974, Hubert Street Road closure and highway dedication removal for adoption. Councillor Raven, Councillor Elliott, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Okay, and 16.2, we have the Parks and Open Spaces bylaw for first three readings if council approves. Let's get it on the table though. Let's get ourselves to seconds. So first reading, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Elliott, all in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Second reading. Councillor Raven, Councillor Elliott. Okay, and discussion, folks. Want? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be bold and brave. Just a question through to staff, if it's appropriate to answer, and if not, please just let me know. Do we have an update at all from BC Housing on the affordable housing project? Thank you.
Mr. Allen?
Not at this time. The BC Housing are in the, we have been advised that BC Housing has hired an architect for the design phase, and that they intend to bring that to the community for public engagement to complete that process. But at this point, that's all we know. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Ray?
Yeah, I'll support this. I think me or who originally proposed the sunset clause or support, I originally supported it anyway. And I think it's just a testament to the difficulty and legal morass that surrounds encampments. And I appreciate that staff does need more time, but there's going to come a day where I won't be able to support this anymore. So.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Councillor Leonard?
Yeah, I'll just echo that. It just, we're going on 2.5 years, or I'm going on 2.5 years being a counselor. We've been talking about this since the moment I got here. And it seems like we talk about it less now, and that we're just not addressing it, and we're not discussing it. And we're just extending the sunset clause, which actually at this point is kind of moot and is meaningless. So I would welcome the conversation, or to have the conversation as a council, and see if we can change anything. But at this point, I will support the sunset clause, and hopefully we can have some meaningful dialogue in the future.
Okay, Councillor Raven, and then I'll chime in.
So I would have to actually disagree that nothing has happened. I do believe that staff and council at every single opportunity, they're using every tool in their toolbox. This is just bigger than our community. This is nationwide, this is international. When I was over in Europe last fall, me and my son were walking in a really nice area, and then we came across a tent encampment that was significantly larger than the one that we have. Not saying that we shouldn't do anything. What I'm saying is that we are trying to do everything. We're raising it everywhere that we can. So I'm not happy about the sunset clause. I want a 24-hour shelter. I want services in place. I want all those things that I believe everyone around this table wants. So this is just always going to be the stopgap, but the work hasn't stopped. It's not necessarily broadcast because I do feel that people are frustrated, but the work is still happening. The conversations are ongoing, or at least that's just how I feel. And continuing to do the work is just what we're going to do. If there was a simple solution, I think another municipality would have found it by now, or our municipality, but this is still complex and changing. So I just think we have to keep on going and see what we can get done when we can get it done.
I see you, Councillor Elliott. I'm just going to Mr. Dewar.
Yeah, I was just going to say that staff has intentions to bring this back for a wholesome discussion with council in the very near future. We have been continuing with the cleanups up there. We removed 3 garbage trucks, I believe it was a few weeks ago. And as well, we are going to be doing hopefully our first official community uplift for the season at some point here in April. So definitely there is still a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes, and we hope to continue to move forward with that work, and certainly hope to put some decisions back in council's plate to make.
Thanks, Mr. Dewar. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mary. It's a big issue. We all know this. We've been talking about it for a while. Santa Claus, the sun's never setting, it seems. So, and to me, the critical point in all of this is the library that's right beside it. That really concerns me, bothers me a lot. I hear about it. I mean, we've all heard about it. But I do think that legalities do slow things down for us a lot. And I understand that anyway. That's very frustrating for the community, for us as a council, to have to come back to this and look at it. And then our community sees this and like, well, their viewpoint is, well, we're not doing anything about it. But I just hope they understand that we care that it's there. We care that the problems that it creates. There's a much bigger social issue that's causing this stuff. I wish I had a solution myself, but I don't. But I'll vote for it going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Leonard, Councillor Ray, and I'll hop in sometime.
Yeah, I'll just, my earlier comments were not to be critical of staff, so I'll just put that on the table. I know that you guys are doing what you can and with the mandate you have. So I'll point my frustration at this table and at council and myself. But our hands are tied too. And, the provincial government's told us we have to maintain these encampments and federal and provincial, and we don't have a lot of control over what happens with that. We don't even get some compensation for it. So, there's lobbying that we can do in that, but yeah, anyway, you've said we'll have that discussion, so we can do that later on. I'm satisfied with that.
Thanks, Councillor Leonard. Councillor Ray.
Yeah, in a similar vein, just want to make sure that my impatience wasn't directed at staff in any way, shape, or form. It's perhaps directed at other levels of government, but sometimes when you can't do anything, sometimes you have to make a point at a certain point in time as well. So that was where withdrawing my support was in the future was headed, is that we can have reasons to do nothing, but at a certain point in time, if everybody does nothing, nothing happens.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. I think I'll just chime in quickly. It's coming back. I do think it remains a critical issue. It's hard to say critical when things don't change. We're 4 years plus into this. Council does have some options. This is for consideration. RBA funds can be spent on this. So we do have some cards we can play at this table if we want to. So when it comes back, I think thinking about what is it that we'd like to see, what can we drive on our own, because I concur in terms of frustration with other levels of government, and there's always another crisis, and there's another crisis now that is going to distract both the provincial and federal government from this. So, if it's a thing that we feel we have an idea on how to move it, we can bring that idea when we have the conversation and think about, what resources are we willing to put at it. We are limited in people resources. I'll grant you that, if we had more folks able to help on the enforcement end to support businesses and residents downtown, that would help. If we had increased enforcement at the RCMP level, that would help. We are limited. There's only so many people. And I think the folks doing the work are doing the best they can within the legal bounds that we're walking in. And it's not like we have endless resources, but we could add to the resources. We can just keep that for food for thought for when it comes back. And then we're gonna vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question through to Mr. Allen. You said that BC Housing, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said BC Housing was going to start a public consultation period on the architectural design of the housing project. Is that correct?
Yes, it's more like a needs, it's part of their needs study for the architectural design. So what does the community need? And we don't have details on that yet. We've talked to the proponents, BC Housing, about making sure compliance with the zoning for the facility, and it's supportive housing with a shelter component at this point. But the details would be addressed and reviewed at a public open house type of forum. That's what they're proposing. And I'm sorry, we don't have any details on timing yet, but we're expecting it. We've recommended before July and August, or after in the fall, and not during the summer months when people are away.
That's okay. Thank you very
Mr. Allen.
much. That's very encouraging to
Yeah.
hear about that particular component, and hopefully folks are listening in, and we'll have an opportunity for ourselves to be engaged in that dialogue. So that's very exciting. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, we ready to vote on second? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And we're doing third as well. So motion for third, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Elliott. Any further comments? All in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Thanks. Hard one. Thanks to staff too. Okay. We have a letter, item 17.1 from Ms. Tomlinson, bringing the world afar to our front yard. Councillor Patterson. Was there a hand over here?
Yes, Your Worship, if you wish to go first, I don't mind.
Go ahead, Councillor
Okay,
Patterson.
sorry, thank you, Your Worship. So I just wanted to say that while I will say I'm opposed to taking down the flag, I was hoping that we could create space for council and staff to discuss our understanding of sort of the current economic climate. Just to understand like what our key messages are should, well, we obviously have correspondence like this, but what our response would be. So I have a motion that was really just at creating space on a future agenda related to our economic development conversations in what sort of maybe one or two key messages we might want to develop so that we have a united response when we receive such a request, just based on the current trade war that we see. But I'll wait until the end. Thank you.
So I want to say, I understand the intent of the letter. I know people are frustrated. I know people are tired. I think that kind of is everybody in the situation, but I don't support taking the flag down because I think that that actually wouldn't help anything for starters, but also there is one person causing chaos in the United States. That's not everybody. And I think that we need to remember that is that the residents and constituents and the Americans are not their president. I wanted to highlight that in Colorado on March 15th, their governor actually declared Colorado Canada Friendship Day, and they flew Canadian flags. So that I just thought was a really nice piece, is where we seem to focus on the division and the separation and the not so nice. And we have the opportunity to do what Canadians do best, and that is put our best foot forward, lead with our hands and our hearts, and just be the good neighbors that we are. To those coming up, that doesn't mean that we're pushovers in any way, shape, or form, but I also don't think it's the best move to start removing flags, because then it also opens the conversation of what other country flags do we start removing, and I really don't want to go down that road.
Thanks, Councillor Raven. Anyone else? Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I think the reason that the flags are on Main Street is to make people feel welcome. I think we had a pretty good discussion about that during the Pride crosswalk, or Rainbow crosswalk. And I think, this might sound weird coming from me, but if we want to stay positive, you know, if we want to send a message, then maybe I'm not really too sure if I'm fond of this, the way this is caught on, but maybe an elbows up flag or something. But I don't want people that are coming from the United States to visit us to not feel welcome. I think if you examined any flag up there, including the Canadian flag, you could make a case for taking it down if we start taking flags down. So while I appreciate the intent, I think the one danger in here is that the people of the United States and the people of Canada are very similar, and everyday people. The danger in this is getting mad at Americans instead of the actions of the American government. I think we all know we're a government and we don't always agree with each other. So not everybody from the United States agrees with the actions. A lot do. But I don't think that's a reason for us to start hating Americans. It's been a long friendship. There's been a lot of good times and a lot of bad times, but I think it's important for ordinary everyday people in both countries to still be able to get along.
Councillor Ray? Anyone else? Councillor Elliott?
Well, I have strong opinions. I could see us taking it down. Half the country voted for their government. In Canada, when we have a government, it's not even a majority of people that vote for the government. So I have no problem with taking it down. Again, I also don't disagree with Councillor Raven's point to what's another flag that maybe we need to take down, Russia or whoever that's invading another country. But yeah, in my heart, I would love to take it down. But that's just me, and I respect anyone else's opinion about it.
Thanks, Councillor Elliott. Rolling around now, you're good. It's not the first request I've seen. And I've got to say, the first request I saw, I landed pretty well with most of you. The more days that go on, the more likely I could see, you know, I mean, what does elbows up mean? I think, you know, I can read the room, and I think the flag is going to stay up. And I think for all kinds of good reasons, but the directions taken by the US government against this country in the last while are ones that, you know, they can make you mad. This is an amazing country filled with amazing citizens that have overall behaved really well. And the directions taken by that government are inexcusable. And I think symbols matter. And I also recognize lots of American people don't support the direction that the government's taken. But, you know, elbows up is elbows up. And it means defending ourselves sometimes emotionally and thinking about what are the good things about this country and speaking a little more forcefully. When this first happened, I made a social post. I haven't been making very many of them, but I am the standard Canadian who doesn't fly a flag and doesn't sew one to my backpack in younger days. And those days are over for me. I want to have a flag up. This is a country I am super proud of. It is filled with great people. And while we might have our divisions and divides as a whole, this is a country I'm really proud to be a part of. I'm not afraid to fly my flag, and I'm not afraid to say, stand down to those who I think are behaving poorly. I don't even know if we have a motion on the floor. We do not? Okay. If someone wants to make one, I'll hear one, and otherwise we'll move on. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor Attrell. So just to provide a bit of clarity on the background for this motion, I really just wanted to get a better understanding of what council as a whole, as leaders in your community, feel that the key messages would be when we're engaging with our constituents when asked about the current trade war. So my motion, Ms. McKinley, I will go slow, and then I can also provide it after if needed, would be that council direct staff to create an agenda item on the next committee of the whole to discuss key messages with respect to the trade war. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Okay. I think the intent is heard. I'll maybe circle back later, but for now. Okay, then where we're going, and thank you for thinking about it. So let's go to the 18s. Is there anything there? There's not so many. Anything that people want to bring forward? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. 18.2, please.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor Worship, Mayor Worship, Your Worship, you're both. So I actually am very familiar with the sign. I believe also Councillor Leonard and yourself also drive past it quite often when we turn there, but I believe that it may have already been taken down. But outside of the actual sign being taken down, I started to reflect on what are council's key messages when we get correspondence from our constituents around diversity and inclusion. And I felt sort of embarrassed to say that I didn't know what the response was. So as always, I just circled back to our strategic plan, and under it, we do have under our specific goal related to culture, we do commit to developing and implementing a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. But I just first want to confirm with staff that that's not something that we had started yet. And then I have a second question just as a follow-up.
Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you very much, Mayor. That is correct. We have not taken action on this policy.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And my second question is outside of that language, just to say that we would develop such a policy. Where could council direct ourselves to sort of ground ourselves in our collective sort of key messages around diversity, equity, and inclusion? Is there anywhere?
Schroeder.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Yes, council has made a number of statements with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion, largely in the official community plan. The official community plan contains a number of policies that the town of Smithers has adopted. And I would also note that I believe that there is a section that's very similar to this, talks about at minimum, the Office of the Wet'suwet'en and Indigenous persons, but I believe that there is some expansion into some other social areas there. And then outside of that, strategic planning documents, and that's likely the best areas you'd find information.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Ray.
Just want to comment, in this case, the billboard in question is not in town. And I think that's where council usually has to, for lack of a better word, mind its own business. I don't like any of the billboards personally, but they're allowed, and you're allowed to have freedom of expression on those billboards because they're on private property. So.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. I'm not really sure any of those billboards are truly legal. I think there has been a real reluctance, like any billboard, there's a highway clearance thing. It's just, collectively, it's not something we're willing to deal with. So I think I'm just not sure any of them are legal. That's the point of that. The other piece, though, I think for the folks that wrote this letter, just doing that actually helps elevate the position. I've had other comments, a couple recently from someone who was driving by and thinking about stopping. It's not this sign in particular, but a couple of other signs where people made decisions on not stopping in the community because some of the signs seem, threatening is maybe not the right word, but intimidating, and people make decisions. So I think it's good to raise things because I think most people are actually trying to make sure they have a welcoming community. But sometimes, how do I say that? Like signs of morality and religion can be welcoming and they can be offensive. So having someone draw attention to how they're feeling about something, I think is okay. Okay. Councillor Raven and Councillor Elliott.
Just to highlight the impact on the community, I know I was recently in the ER and there was a doctor on rotation that was thinking about moving to Smithers, saw the billboards and actually took Smithers off the list. So even though it is regional district, it does have a significant impact on how people perceive Smithers as a whole, people don't seem to recognize boundaries between regional district and our community. Since we are the hub, when they see what is on some of those billboards, it does actually chase quite a few away. And I actually did ask at our health committee meeting, just if other organizations were impacted by the billboards, and most of them actually said they were, like where people specifically mentioned that because of the billboards, they looked at other communities.
Thanks, Councillor Raven. Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, I just want to put my 2 cents in, I guess. I agree with Councillor Ray that a lot of the billboards I don't like. It's just a lot of people's opinions put on those billboards, and I think it does a detriment to our community. Maybe it delivers a wrong message to people coming through. We don't all agree on all of these things. Of course, I don't have opinions about some of these matters in these reports and letters, but it doesn't really matter what my opinion is. I think we still should be a welcoming community for people, whether I agree with what they want to do with their bodies or not. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't want anyone to feel disrespected or marginalized because of a billboard.
Thanks, Councillor Elliott. Mr. George, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Patterson. Another document that might be a good resource that Council recently adopted was the communications plan. Just doing a quick search in there, there's some good language that when Council is talking to members of the community or just referencing this around inclusivity and some of the language and tones that we're using as the municipality in our communication across all platforms. So a good recently adopted resource there.
Okay. We've gone around. I'm going to move on. Alrighty. We are at, if I'm following the numbers, we are at 19.1. And we have, I guess I should open it. We have the report from Ms. Padel on the Natural Assets Management Plan grant application with a recommendation. Councillor Ray.
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Raven seconds. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any. All in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Okay. Anything I've missed? All right, motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Raven, Councillor Elliott, everyone's always in favor. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.